So, I've mained Venom in Marvel Rivals since launch, and for a while I thought he was one of the best designed characters in the game. The dive, the wall crawl, the moment where you pop his shields at 100 health and just refuse to die. I mean, it felt right to me, right? But recently something's been bugging me. I'll be mid-game shooting tendrils at someone from across the point, and I'll think, is this really what Venom should feel like? I feel like I'm playing a character who's in the comics a massive physical overwhelming force, a symbiote that morphs its entire body into weapons, and in the game, I feel like I'm poking someone with little noodles from 15 meters away, right? And apparently, I'm not the only one thinking this, because Marvel Rivals has to do something that no other hero shooter ever has to deal with, right? Overwatch invents their characters from scratch, Valorant designs a kit, it builds a personality around it, but Rivals has to take characters that people have loved for decades, characters with established powers, fighting styles, personalities, and somehow squeeze them into a 6v6 team shooter. And no matter how good the kit is, someone is going to say that it doesn't quite feel right. And what's interesting about Venom specifically is that people can't seem to agree. I mean, half the player base thinks he's one of the best designed characters, and the other half thinks he's wasted potential. And I've been going back and forth trying to figure out which side I'm actually on. So before we talk about whether Marvel Rivals got Venom right, we need to talk about who Venom actually is. And it's not just reading off the wiki, right? I mean, what makes Venom feel like Venom when you see him in anything? If I asked you to describe Venom to someone who had never heard of him, you'd probably say something like a big, scary alien with teeth, freaky tongue, and maybe eats people. Is just this black blob thing. And that's kind of surface level, but what actually makes Venom work as a character is the duality, right? It's half Eddie Brock and it's half the symbiote. And the two beings share one body that literally speaks in plural, that references itself as we. So one is a washed up journalist with a grudge, and the other is an alien parasite that feeds on rage and adrenaline. And apart, they're both kind of pathetic in a way. I mean, together they're one of the most dangerous things in Marvel. The way that Venom fights sort of reflects that. I mean, he doesn't have a weapon, he is the weapon, and the symbiote sort of reshapes itself into whatever Eddie needs. Claws, tendrils, shields, blades. In the comics, Venom's body is constantly morphing and changing. He grabs people with tentacles that shoot out of his back, he turns his arms into axes, he's brutal and physical in a way that most Marvel characters aren't. There's not really any sort of elegance to Venom. He's very raw and overwhelming as a force, right? And he's sort of Spider-Man's dark mirror. I mean, they got the same powers, the wall crawling, the web swinging, the strength, but twisted. And Spider-Man pulls his punches, Venom doesn't, and that's what makes him special. So when you put Venom in a video game, you've got this massive checklist of things that make him, right? The shape-shifting, the physicality, the duality, the brawling, and just being a general menace. Right? In every game that's tried to adapt him has had to pick which parts to keep and which parts to cut. Now, Marvel Rivals made some very specific choices with Venom. I mean, he's a Vanguard, which thank goodness he is, because the game has way too many DPS, but that's a conversation for another time. But his primary fire shoots these tendrils at medium range. He can web swing and wall crawl, just like Spider-Man, and he's got cellular corrosion, which are like these tendrils that go out of him and sort of re-slow enemies and goo. And then he's got this symbiotic resilience, which is his massive health shield based on how much HP he's missing, and his ultimate, which is the Feast of the Abyss, right? So that he goes underground and then he comes back out as like this giant teeth monster or goo glop thing, and bites whoever's nearby for a percentage of health-based damage, and then also applies anti-heal. Now, like I said, I think this is great, right? When I'm playing Venom, I swing into the back line, I slam down, you try to take out a healer, you pop your shields, and then swing back out once you're getting a little bit too low for comfort, right? And to me, it feels like being Venom. The ability to pop the shields and just get so much health back. I mean, it's very much feels like the comic book version of him, and every Venom fight follows a pretty similar pattern, right? Eddie Brock, and Venom just get beat up and get pushed lower and lower, and then they come back harder, right? And it's very much the symbiotic resilience is that moment as a game mechanic. But here's where the other camp comes in. So the biggest complaint I keep seeing is about the shapeshifting, or really the lack of it. Venom is a symbiote, right? He basically is a fluid goo that can take any form. In the comics, his body is constantly changing, and his arms are turning into blades, tendrils are erupting from his back, his chest opens up into his mouth, and the symbiote is the moveset, right? And yet in Marvel Rivals, he swings, he slams, he shoots some tendrils, but people feel like you could swap Venom's model for any big melee character, and the kit wouldn't feel that different. I mean, the shapeshifting, the thing that makes Venom visually distinct from every other strong guy in Marvel, is basically not really there at all. I mean, when people suggest alternatives, they're not even asking for crazy stuff. Just things like turning his arm into a wide cleave, or some other drastic changes include giving him a shield in the form of shapeshifting into like a spiky wall or something, right? I mean, these are pretty unique ideas that utilize the full scope of the character. Things that make you go, oh, only Venom could do that, right? In regards to his primary fire, and this is honestly one I actually kind of agree with, his tendrils shoot out at like a medium range in this weird burst pattern, and it doesn't feel physical, right? It feels like you're poking at people from a safe distance, but that's not Venom. Venom gets in your face, he grabs you, he sort of overwhelms you in the comics, right? But a lot of people say the tendril attack feels a lot more like Carnage, his red cousin, who's a lot more of a long-range tendril guy in the comics, or sort of like a discount Reed Richards. Venom should feel like getting hit by a truck, not getting tickled by spaghetti. And the weird thing is, the game already knows this. When you use Frenzy in a rival and slam into somebody, that feels like Venom. When you pop the resilience and you're in someone's face refusing to die, that feels like Venom. But the primary fire you're using 90% of the time, that is the part that honestly feels the least like him. And then there's the ultimate, the Feast of the Abyss, right? On paper, it sounds incredible, and even in game, it looks pretty cool, but you burrow underground like a predator, erupt from below, and bite whoever's nearby. That should be the most Venom moment of the entire game, but in practice, you dive under, you come up, you bite someone, and they just sort of walk away at half health. For a character who's supposed to be one of the most physically overwhelming things in the Marvel universe, having your big cinematic moment result in the enemy just casually retreating feels anticlimactic, and I know they sort of fix this with the anti-heal, but at the start of fights, it can often feel like your damage just kind of goes nowhere, if that makes sense. Now, experienced Venom players might tell you that it's not really about the damage, it's about the survivability that the ult gives you during the bite, which is a smart mechanic, but it doesn't look or feel like what Venom's ultimate should be. The skill expression is there, it's just the fantasy isn't, right? There's also the anti-Venom thing, which is a whole separate missed opportunity. In the comics, anti-Venom is a completely different entity. When Eddie Brock was cured of cancer, traces of the symbiote mixed with his white blood cells and created anti-Venom, which was a whole different being with healing powers who literally cures diseases and purges toxins on contact. He's Venom's opposite in every way. That's a full character with a completely different kit. You could easily imagine an anti-Venom support who like cleanses, debuffs, and heals. Instead, he's a white recolor skin on the existing Venom, which is like same kit, different paint job. It's not the worst thing in the world, but that did kind of annoy me. Like, we definitely have space for more creative supports, and a healer symbiote would have been one of the coolest things to see. But anyways, I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, right? So when I actually sat with all of these complaints instead of dismissing them, I started to see a pattern, right? The people who say Venom doesn't feel like Venom aren't saying the character is necessarily weak. In fact, he's S tier right now. They're not saying he's adly designed as a game piece. He's actually one of the strongest vanguards in the game. And what they're saying is the kit doesn't capture the specific parts of Venom that they care about the most, right? The visceral, physical, shape-shifting monster who is his own weapon. And I think that's a legitimate complaint, even if I love playing him. This is where I think it gets interesting, because I think both sides are right, and the reason is that Venom is actually like 3 different characters depending on which era of comics or movies you grew up with. If your Venom is Todd McFarlane's 1988 original, right? The terrifying stalker who hunts Spider-Man through alleyways, then yeah, Marvel Rivals Venom feels wrong. That Venom is pure horror. He should be in your face, biting, clawing, shape-shifting. He shouldn't be shooting tendrils from 15 meters away. If your Venom is the Tom Hardy movie Venom, where Venom seems to be there for goofs and gaffes, and it's more of a comedic type of Venom who's more bickering with Eddie and you know, they're in a lobster tank and God knows what, right? It doesn't actually match that either, because Marvel Rivals Venom doesn't really have that duality. But if you were going for a Donny Cates Venom who's swinging through the city looking for fights and getting more dangerous the more that you hurt him, well, I think they actually nailed that. I mean, the dive, the wall crawl, ambush, the 100 HP shield pops, it definitely sort of creates that lethal protector persona, and that's the guy who creates space through sheer threat, not by protecting his team, but by being so dangerous that the enemy team has to deal with it. That dive fantasy that Marvel Rivals actually creates pretty well. And I think that's the real conversation here. It's not, did Marvel Rivals get Venom right or wrong? It's which Venom were they even trying to make? So where does that leave Venom? I think Marvel Rivals made the right call on the parts that matter the most. The unkillable Predator fantasy is there. This swing, dive, fight, refuse to die loop is genuinely thrilling to play, right? And the symbiotic resilience is one of the best examples of character identity as a game mechanic in any hero shooter. The idea that Venom gets more dangerous as you hurt him translated directly into gameplay. But I also think critics have a real point about the stuff that's missing. When I'm shooting tendrils at someone from 15 meters away, it doesn't feel like I'm an alien predator, right? It feels like I'm playing any other ranged character with a Venom skin on. So instead of just complaining about it, I wanted to actually think about what changes could bring Venom closer to his fantasy without breaking the game. And obviously, take these with a grain of salt. I'm not a game designer or a game balancer, but I think there's stuff here that would make a real difference. And the first thing I'd look at is the primary fire. This is the ability you're using most of the game, and it's one of the that feels the least like Venom. Right now, it's a medium range tendril burst that honestly could belong to any character, but what if instead of shooting tendrils, Venom's primary was more of a close range flurry? His arms would morph into different shapes with each swing. One hit, for example, could be a claw swipe, the next is a tendril lash, the next is a hammer. Same damage, same timing, but now it looks like a symbiote that's constantly reshaping itself. You could actually see the shapeshifting in the attack you're using every single fight. And the range would need to be maybe a little bit shorter or whatever, but you could compensate by making cellular corrosion slightly longer range so he still has a way to engage from a distance before closing the gap. Or maybe even make it so that the damage varies depending on what he shapeshifts into. For example, if he shapeshifts into an axe, it could do a lot more damage than a tendril, but have less range. That would be such a cool and unique idea that we haven't seen on any other character. The second thing is, and this is a bigger design question, is the Vanguard problem, right? I mean, Venom is classified a tank, but he doesn't have a lot of team protection abilities. No shield, no barrier. And I think this is fine. Not every character has to have a shield. And like I said earlier, it actually fits who Venom is. But I will say this, as someone who enjoys tanking on Venoms, oftentimes you're left in a situation where you're the only tank on the team and you have 3 DPS. And in cases like that, it is a hard situation to play. It creates this weird situation where your team is expecting a Vanguard and you're swinging into their backline. I think the fix might be to lean into the aggression and give him a way to reward his team for diving with him. Like, what if when he lands cellular corrosion on an enemy, the target takes increased damage from all sources for a little bit? Or what if when symbiotic resilience proc, it gave a small burst heal or overshield to nearby allies? This would all promote him diving, and it would keep his identity as a dive tank while also making him feel like a Vanguard. So these are small changes. I mean, they don't turn Venom into Reinhardt. They don't make him stand on point and hold right click, but they close the the gap between a dive character and an aggressive Vanguard who creates opportunities for his team in a way that still makes him feel like Venom, leading through violence, not just protecting his teammates. Now, would all of these changes work perfectly? Certainly not. Certainly not. These are most likely broken. But balance is complicated. I'm sure there are reasons that the developers made the choices that they did. But I think the direction is right. Push Venom towards being a more physical, visceral, and rewarding champion for his team without fundamentally changing the Predator identity that already works. Because right now, Marvel Rivals Venom is a great character to play. The question is whether he's a great version of Venom. And the honest answer is he's about 70% of the way there. The 70% they got is the hard part. The feel, the survivability, the movement. The 30% they're missing is the stuff that would make you forget you're playing a game and just feel like you are the symbiote. And I think that last 30% is what separates a good adaptation from a legendary one. Thanks for watching, and if you got opinions on whether Venom feels right or not, or even any other characters in Marvel Rival that you'd want to have a deep dive in, or maybe even other games, I genuinely want to hear about them in the comments because I'm clearly still figuring out where I land on this myself. Like and subscribe if you want more stuff like this, and thanks for watching.